So what is it like to make a file backup of an Xbox hard drive that hasn't been touched since 2005? In my last video, I unloaded all of my video game systems from storage and put them into my spare room, where I found out I had an Xbox problem. I have a few Xbox consoles that have some problems, like having an error number 5, meaning they can't read the disc, or this Executor 3 front panel that has broken pins. I managed to get the Executor 3 working again by making a couple of service level adjustments, and it booted right up. And I showed you Half-Life 2 playing off the hard drive. We also answered the question, does Benson like the original Xbox startup screen? The answer was no. He liked the 360 screen better. So the remaining questions were, could we get this Xbox running better? Can we fix that front panel? And can we get this one running? On the Executor 3 system, the hard drive was as old as dirt. I was hoping to be able to pull the hard drive out and put it onto my PC to be able to make a hard copy. It's a Western Digital IDE drive from 2005. I got my hopes up that I would be able to replace it with this hard drive that I pulled from an Xbox One. The first issue I ran into with the old Western Digital is that I couldn't get my PC to see it. If anyone knows why this could be, go ahead and let me know in the comments. At this point, I had no choice but to put the hard drive back into the Xbox and do a manual copy over the network. While this was happening, I decided to chill for a second and get ready for the next challenge. The Halo Edition Xbox is something I bricked quite a few years ago, trying to replace the hard drive. And the wife bought this together our first year dating, and if I got this running, that would be awesome. I start to prepare for the soldering, but I make a mistake instantly with the soldering. Take a look at the temperature on my soldering iron. Notice anything wrong with that? I'm going to regret this later. One thing to note with that D0 pin that I'm trying to get in right there is that you should never have your soldering iron that hot when trying to pin it to the board. I'm now seating the Aladdin XT onto the board, but I notice it's a little cockeyed. Look at that level. Top notch. I'm still worried about that D0, but let's see what happens. The blinking red light of death. Gotta love that. I messed up with that D0. Now the wire comes right off when I pull the tape off, and there's no recovering it because I destroyed the pin. Here I am lamenting the board. Gotta do this another time. Let's move on to another thing. That broken panel. I bet there's a way I can easily solder those 5 pins right there. Let's take a look. The top cover comes off and it's easy to see how easy the pins fit there, and it looks like it's the only thing that holds that connector to the board. After using the soldering iron to make another challenge on that previous motherboard, I decide to control my temperature a little bit on my soldering iron. A little too low, I have to bring it back up so that way it actually melts when I'm pulling the solder off of this little microboard. I got my solder wick to get all of the extra off, and then I prep it so that way I can solder the connector back on and reseat it so that way it stays solid when I reconnect the connector. Now it looks like it's going to hold, but there's only one way to find out if it even works at all. Look at that connection. It's super seated. At this point I was 2 days into my copy and I'd only made it to H, and I just wasn't willing to wait. I shut it off, I reconnected everything, put the switch back that I flipped, stick the panel to the case, and get ready to replace the thermal glue. The heatsinks came right off since it had been running for a few days and it was nice and warm. And look at that. Would you look at that? I went ahead and flipped over one of the flashable banks to see if it would start up, and we have the BIOS flasher tool. It's an adapter, but not just any kind of adapter, is it? What is that? Is that a StarTech adapter? The internet highly regards the StarTech hard drive adapter for the Xbox hard drive upgrade. I managed to copy a lot of system files over to the new hard drive and was trying to test it out. But then, the Xbox decided to give me a heart attack. It turns out it was a matter of switching the drive selection to cable select from master, and then I got a boot, but nothing from the hard drive. Just the BIOS because the hard drive wasn't properly formatted. This is where my hopes for this hard drive were properly dashed. It had the opposite problem of the existing drive, where I could get it to read on the PC, but not the Xbox. I grabbed WinSCP from Ninite.com and I started a proper backup using the 500GB drive, because if I couldn't use it in the Xbox, I was going to use it for something. Then I grabbed another terabyte drive I had sitting around and I was going to use that in the system. I went ahead and formatted it on that system, and then I stuck it back into my PC to see if it showed up. It did. I then took the file backup I made on the 500GB drive and started copying everything over to the terabyte drive. And what do you know? Everything showed up. It was the hard drive all along. I went to see if all my games copied over, and minus a couple of file errors with a few of the games, everything showed up. Everything's there. My full catalog. It was a mission success.
Wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Of course, there's still long load times for certain games, and you can't get around that. That's just hardware limitations from 2001. You can't stop an Xbox from being an Xbox.
See you get on.
After I did in a week what I should have done in 2 days, it felt like I was finally enjoying my Xbox. It was time to put it all back together, get everything wound up, properly mount the front panel onto the Xbox using some awesome double-sided sticky tape. Of course, after cleaning up all of the gunk that was left over from the old tape from however long ago it was that this thing was first installed. And now this was looking like a properly modded Xbox. And there it is in all its glory. A completed modded Executor 3 Xbox. I also threw a Genesis mod onto the Xbox so I can clear some space for a future project. I think I'll stick it right where this thing was. Here's Benson sitting in my lap enjoying the Xbox with me. So join us next time when we either try to throw Sir BIOS onto this old Xbox, or we find out what Benson thinks of the original Xbox 360 startup screen. See you next time.